come to speak to us at this time. We'll be in touch. This group is just a technical working group. We are just diasporians or Kenyans from various organizations. We are leaders in our own niches, but for this one, we just came together for one particular agenda and how to actually push for representation in Parliament in Kenya, as well as increasing the voting rights in the diaspora. So without further ado, thank you so much, Oshimiwa. I'll quickly just run through our presentation tonight. So just to start off, the conversation about the diaspora governance and representation has been there for quite some time. And in the last election, me and some of the wonderful men and women who are in this call, we had a conversation on how well we can get representation as well as the governance. And when we pushed through the political parties, I remember the team from Azimio were pushing on their end. We on the side of Kenya Kwanza were as well pushing on our end. We successfully got State Department for Diaspora Affairs, which really needed the political goodwill as well as the executive, of which we really appreciate and say thank you to the president for giving us the State Department. It wasn't an easy thing. It was a hassle. It was a push and pull, but finally we got the State Department, and we are hoping that we'll be able to work up from the State Department all the way to the ministry. We also wanted to push for setting up the diaspora county, and we hit the headwind because we have to amend the constitution. And to be more specific, the Kenya Constitution, when it comes to the functions under Schedule 4, it explains the function of the county, and some of it including licensing the liquor stores, traffic, agriculture, crops, and all. So it was really hard for us to push at that particular time. But anyhow, we said, okay, maybe in future when we have the constitutional moment, we'll be able to push through at that time. And we also talked about the constituencies. I know we have a team that has been working or having conversations surrounding the constituency 291, but we are looking at the constituencies because when you read Article 89 of the Constitution, it explains to you about the population quota per constituency. So in 2010, when the new constitution was inaugurated, Kenya was approximately 45 to 46 million people. So on average, when they did the population quota per constituency out of 290, it was ranging between 60 to 100,000 population. But as we speak today, Kenya is closer to 57 or 56 million Kenyans. So that means the population quota of per constituency, it will be, once they do the review, it will range maybe from 180 to 220,000 Kenyans per constituency. But the diaspora, we are quite aware that we are many, could be more than in millions. So we will require several constituencies. And Weshimio, actually, you guys have this particular experience. If you look at France, for instance, and also Italy, they came up with multiple constituencies, for the diasporians because of the population. So at this time, there's less likely of having it because Article 89, if you read it, Part 8, it will tell you that IBC will be able to review the boundaries, do the naming, and review the boundary of the constituency, but not add. But when it comes to the wards, it can actually add the wards. But it was very specific that as it is at the moment, there are only 290 constituencies in the Republic of Kenya. Any other addition of the diaspora in the last election was 291 or 292 for the prisons is just for the administrative purposes. And I think on this call, we also have representatives from IBC. They will also, we have a chance, they'll also have to say on that. Just for administration, because of the KIMS kit, they wanted to know how well these votes will be captured because we are not classified under the constituency. Because when it comes to the presidential election, a president has to gain a certain number of constituencies to be actually the president, as well as the counties. So at the moment, we only have 290. And for us to increase, it means we have to go back to Article 89(1) and amend the numbers, and as well go down there under Section 8 Article 898, and also amend and tell IBC, you can also add the numbers of the constituents. So at the moment, there's less likelihood, because when you are in Nairobi, we started also this conversation, we realized the legislators, they don't want to go into constitutional moment at this time because of the economy and other issues that are going on. But we went to another section of having a council and engaging them that why can't we have a diaspora council, because this is a common practice across the world that most governments have set up council. And I have to tell you the truth that this is a conversation I personally have had a discussion with the president. And when he was in Atlanta in May, if you were to watch that clip, he mentioned about the board or the council. This is something that is active with the State Department for Diaspora Affairs on how well we can set it up, having a diaspora council, how it can be set up. And actually it was captured in the diaspora policy. And maybe next year, not maybe, but next year, the policy will be in action. Then after that, we are looking at legislating this council. And the reason why we don't want the executive to set up the council is the independence of this council, because the council has to be independent. And if you allow the executive to set it up and choose people, they'll be yes to the government of the day. How about in future? So if we legislate it and have the way Italy did, the way France did, the way other countries have done, on how we can actually come up with a legislation of having our own diaspora council, or whichever the name they can use, then that can be like a governing body, which will be funded by our taxes, which is something that has been accepted in the executive, and there's political goodwill, something I can report, and even other members of the technical working group can also comment on it, that establishing a diaspora council of Kenya, it is something that is live, it is easy, it's something we can actually push maybe next year and even have it before the next election. The next part was about nominations and appointments. We are happy to report that the current government was able to appoint some of our people in government. One example is Bishop Warui, Joe Warui. He is now the Deputy Ambassador in the UK, among others in other positions. So the appointments has been there, but we are trying to push that for us as diasporan, we need more appointments in all positions, because we have our own justification when it comes to our remittances. Now, having said that, I just wanted to have that outlook from you so that you can understand how this journey has been for this all time. Now, as we speak, leaders, as we speak today, if we were to get representation in the diaspora in our guest houses, that is the Senate, the counties, and also the National Assembly, there's only two ways at the moment. If you were to push for the constituencies, it will push us to have an amendment in the Constitution, which is, it brings in Article 255, 256, and 257 of the Kenya Constitution. It's a huge bridge, it's a huge step. We all want to go there, but at the moment, there's something we can actually say and sail through and have our own representatives from the diaspora being in the Kenyan Parliament, Kenyan Senate, and also our counties. It's our proposal from the Technical Working Group that instead of us pushing constitutional amendment, we can actually push for legislative amendment, which is much easier because it will just require us to talk to the members of parliament with the amendment bill, which is easier than going to the constitution, which has to take us a long journey. So we are proposing that we need to amend Section 34, that is at Elections Act 2011, Section 34. That is what we want to amend, as well as push through our political party structure. We have members here who are leaders in WIPA, in ODM, in UDA, in Ford Kenya, whichever the political, but they live in the diaspora. They need to push in those political parties diaspora to be recognized. At the moment, I am associated with UDA, At the moment, we are pushing for change of the constitution in the UDA party. ODM, I'm very sure they are also doing the same. They are pushing for the changes so that ODM, diasporians who are affiliated with the ODM or WIPA, they can actually be structured well in the party. It comes with a lot of benefits. You'll not only be recognized by the party, but when it comes to nominations, you can actually be nominated representing the diaspora, as I'll be able to explain in the next slide. So that is the route we are telling that this is the only way we can push at the moment towards the 2027 election, even as at the back of our mind, we say we still need to push for having constituencies, having a county, something you have to push. But I'll just give you an example of how Italy did it. It took Italy about 60 years to push the amendment of the constitution. Even France, until 2001 and 2010, that is when actually they were able to get representatives in their parliament and have constituencies across different regions. It took time. The only way they did it is push first their own people, be in government, be closer to power, then influence the people who are in power to push these changes. That is the easiest way, that if we are able to go through nominations, to go through this other route of appointments, then while we are inside on the table, it will be easier for us to push that let us amend our constitution in this and this, because today, as we are in the diaspora, we are all depending on the goodwill. We are all depending on that WhatsApp message we receive from those Weshimiwa. We are all depending on that phone call when you talk to Weshimiwa. But I'll tell you a fact. I'm a good experience. Once those guys finishes and put our phone calls and our WhatsApp away, they forget everything. We can't continue doing that. So that's why you're saying, let's use this way. We are suggesting as a technical working group that let's use this easy way. We feel it is easy. We tested it in last month when we went to Nairobi. It is workable. It is possible. They accept it. Then once it has gone, then you say, okay, we got the State Department, that's a check. We have gotten these nominations, that's a check. Then let's go to the next move, step by step. I've learned from my own stories that if you want to eat an elephant, you eat it piece by piece. You can't eat a whole of it. So if you're able to piece out our issues and then take one step by another, we'll be able to succeed. This is the current representation in the National Assembly of Kenya at the moment. We have 359 representatives, 290 are elected, 47 are also elected women reps, then we have 12 nominated. If you allow me, if you are to read Article 81 of the Constitution, it brings in what we call the special groups, and it gives us a place actually we can anchor our conversation. We want to come in through the representation, through a special group, because the Constitution gives categories of special groups. They have the youth, the persons with disability, then we also have the marginalized group. So we were like, let's come through the marginalized, because the Constitution says at that angle, including Article 81E, if you're able to read, please, you'll understand that part. Article 81E, it says including. So that including doesn't limit which groups special groups can come in. We are able to talk to our representatives in Kenya last month as the team. We got their feedback. They are willing to do it. They are ready to do it. Then that's why we feel like, let's go back to our leaders in the diaspora and also explain to them that it is possible for us to get representation under the special group category. If we amend Section 34 of the Election Act, that will force political parties, when they're submitting the party list before election, we have the party list, they will submit the names under each category. So if the youth category, they will submit the names. The person with disability, they'll submit the names. The marginalized, they'll submit the names. So we'll have another category called diaspora. They'll submit names. It doesn't have to be Danson's name. It can be whoever. It can be Bernard Kavi. It can be whoever name that will be there. Then after the election, we have that proportionate, that how they get up based on the percentage of how many seats they have received. If I'm in the UDA and I get, well and good. If George is in ODM and gets, that is well and good. If Dr. Karundu is, any party that you are in, if you're able to get through and get representation specifically for the diaspora, that will be a gain for us. Today, we are celebrating our representatives in our countries we live. The hassle they went through, it was a tough one. They had to go through a lot of issues, but today we're celebrating them. Look at how they're even sharing the benefits that they're telling our people. We are going to help you to go through this. So whoever will get, even if you are, Wiper is the one that has gotten us a representative as a nominated member for diaspora. Well and good. We all celebrate and we talk to him. He push our agenda. Whichever the political, but as long as we have someone inside the parliament who can go on the floor of the house and speak for our thousands of women who are now dying in the Middle East. Today, nobody can go on the floor of the house and speak to our ladies who are actually suffering in the Middle East. Nobody. We have a migrant committee for migrant workers. But what do they do at this time? We want someone who can actually come through this process that we are setting up and stand on the floor of the House and say, Mr. Speaker, it cannot continue like this. I represent these people from the diaspora. I am connected to our leaders as well. They're represented in various countries, and we cannot continue like this. We need a voice on the floor of the House. We just have to, it doesn't matter who is going there, but at least we need to get there. This is the easier route. We tested, we talked with them. They gave us some feedback, but it is doable. It is the lowest hanging fruit, ladies and gentlemen. We can grab this, and in 2027, we can get 2 or 3 people in parliament or in the Senate or in our counties representing diaspora issues completely. It is quite practical. The other one that you're seeking for the constituency and other, it is also possible. But at this time, what is practical, looking at the political rearrangements, broad-based and everything, it will become a hurdle to amend the Constitution of Kenya this time. But it will be easy for us to go through the parties and change an existing act, an existing law, and get representation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is not an easy way to get representation. When you talk to politicians, they'll give you, what do I get out of this? We met secretary generals of political parties, and they ask us, so as a party, what do I gain if I allow your amendment to go through? Because they speak on behalf of the party. That brings us to the voting. In the last election, and this picture is in Washington, D.C., and maybe some of my friends are here. They can see their picture here. Article 38 gives us that mandate that we can vote, we have a right to vote, and we have a right to affiliate to any political party. And brings it to 82 also mandates IBC to actually enable us to do that, to vote and be represented. The journey to representation or to this voting right in the diaspora, it didn't start today, even maybe before I was existing. It has been a hurdle. People have died because of this right to vote. And when we are listening to Honorable Raila Odinga during our visit, he'll tell you step by step how this thing was so hard to even convince the people that you can allow people who are living abroad to vote. The Bomas draft, I know we have people who are also participated in this. It hasn't been an easy walk. But as last year, we only had 10,000 people registering out of close to 4 million across the world. There are only 10,000 registered to vote. If I was to break it down, UK, for instance, we have 798 Kenyans who are voters. In the US, we are less than 500. I must appreciate the Kenyans who live in the Middle East, because the Middle East leads, that is Doha, Qatar, with about 1,500 Kenyans registered, then followed by Kampala, Uganda, that is in Africa, then Juba, in that category. So we are very few Kenyans who can actually register to vote. So you can imagine you're going to a politician, tell him, can you push this amendment? Then you tell him we are only 10,000 people. He look at you, is like, what are you guys doing? 10,000 and you want me to do this? Can you at least tell me we have 500,000? So it's easy for me to convince my party that, hey, kuna kura, there's some vote somewhere we can bring to the party. It's all about that. But we have some reasons to that. Like in the last election, I was the agent for UDA, I must say. And one of the issues we faced was time. You know, we could not, because the law says it's supposed to be 6 a.m. to 5 p.m., then the poll closes. East African time, if you read the regulation, which is part of the law, East African time. If you vote out of that time, it means your vote will not be counted. So you had to go to court, and I want to appreciate Dr. Marasa and the team who actually took the IBC to court and were able to get a high court injunction to do that. So there has been systematic way of making sure that we don't vote or we are limited to vote. But now we have found a way on how actually we can register in numbers. If you are in numbers, I know we have Weshmio here who are politicians. If you have the numbers, they will listen to you. They will call you. They will talk to you. Can you guys get me those numbers? At the moment, we only tell them we have the money, but that's it. One of Mweshmio asked me, so you guys send your money to your families. How do I benefit directly to me as a party or as a member of parliament? So these are the things that are on the ground. And this is how we voted. And as we speak today, we only have 12 countries gazetted to vote. I know there's that conversation that they'll be increasing, but that is not what we want. We have 18 polling stations across the world. And this year, I think the current government has added two embassies, that is Ivory Coast, Abidjan, Morocco, that is Rabat, and one in Jeddah. Next year, we're expecting an addition of Guangzhou and Port-au-Prince in Haiti as one of the consulates. But out of all these 66, only 12 of them are working. Now we'll be getting about 71 or 72. We can't continue having this, ladies and gentlemen. Yet the Constitution gives us a right to vote. It is non-negotiable. We have to tell them, and we are there and we spoke to them. And as I was highlighting some of the challenges we had, the distance, and I'm giving an example of the United States. I know, Mheshimiwa Hulda, you are in Minnesota. As a Kenyan citizen, as much as you are the representative, you have a right to vote as well. But unfortunately, it will take you how many hours from Minnesota to Washington, D.C. to vote? You have to drive or spend your own money. Yet the Constitution says elections should be free and fair. So for us in the diaspora, we pay, it's not free. Personally, I spent almost close to $5,000 in the last election just to get this right. So we can't continue this way. And that's why we are saying these issues of distance, people in America, we know where we are. Even the US Census last week released the data, and I was so surprised to see Kenya also classifying where Kenyans are in the United States, for instance. They can tell you where we are. We know which cities we are. So distance really pushed us in the last election. Time, as well as I've said. Voter apathy because of lack of civic engagement. There was a few days they just give us a gazette notice saying, oh, your diaspora have the next few days to start voter education. We can't continue this way. IBC has said about budget, that there's issues with budget, which we understand them. We were with them, we spoke to them, they explained to us where the issues are in terms of budget, because they're like, you guys are only 10,000 people. And if you're going 10,000 people to budget, you may not get a lot of money. But if you are 1 million registered voters in the diaspora, budgeting goes with that, as well. And there was also limited political goodwill. Our politicians that we have been supporting, I know some of our diasporians have been supporting our politicians forever. Yeah, we call them diehards. But the political goodwill wasn't there in 2022 to push some of these things. That's why we are starting mapema, very early. By 2027, we'll have some of these things sorted out. And in our bill, we are proposing, and the reason why we chose the legislative route, I know we have received some, my apologies, I think I have an issue with power. As we have said, I've received some feedback that maybe this thing can be done administratively, things like that. But if you've been to Kenya and maybe you have people who are actually in these offices, especially IEBC, they'll tell you how administrative decisions will lead them to court. If they were just to wake up and say, we are putting 1 million polling centers in the diaspora, they'll be taken to court by politicians. That's why they're very careful on how we can actually do this. And they support us that if we can use the law, if we can have them legislate, it will be easy for us, to do some of these things. We are suggesting to them, or in the law, that let's have a secretariat or an ad hoc committee between the diaspora, because IBC is not a big office, it's a big office, but not well staffed, and we want to work with them. So we are suggesting that we can have a committee, a temporary committee between the diasporians and IBC to work on some of the issues that in relation to election, or including how to do mapping, where Kenyans are, how to set up some of the infrastructure, how to do civic engagement. A committee will really help them, because in the previous elections, they have just been reaching out to whoever comes first. Maybe talk to Danson, talk to David, talk to whoever, in just brief, but not in a well-structured way. So we are suggesting let's have this ad hoc committee budgeted for, so that they can actually focus on making sure that diasporians are able to vote. And I've highlighted one of their functions. Today we have been using diaspora, but the word diaspora is not in our legislation. So it's just for administrative, but we received good feedback that it's good actually to legislate around the diaspora, because it's not the word of the day. We used to use, where they've been using Kenyans living abroad, but now diaspora is on the line. We are also suggesting that without discrimination, all our embassies, consulates, and high commissioners should act as polling and registration centers. Why do I say so? Because our constitution says that there shall be continuous registration of Kenyans, meaning registration of Kenyans to vote should continue anytime. And because of the resources, we are asking, or we are proposing that our embassies should actually be there all the time with officers there, so that anytime you go to the embassy or our consulate, you can get your passport or your ID, and immediately you can say, I want to register as a voter without any issues. This will help IBC in terms of managing resources as well, instead of them doing mass registration, but people going to the embassy or even having events that are the embassy and high commissioners, they can actually register. It will also have officers. Today we've been having consular services, our officers from Kenya coming together with the officers at the embassies, registering Kenyans for passports and IDs. So if we have officers in the embassy, specifically electoral officers, because the law says that it's only an electoral officer. So Danson cannot register you as a voter unless I've taken that oath, and I've also gone through the training by IBC, which is the only body mandated to train me to be as an officer to register you as a voter. The same case we have with immigration. So it's similar. So that is our suggestion as well. The pre-departure training, Kenyans are leaving the country every day. I was at the airport. They are leaving. They are going to the Middle East. They are going. Some are being taken by the government. Some are doing it on their own. We need them to know their rights. We need them to have pre-departure training when they are leaving the country with material that they can vote. Our suggestion when it comes to issues with the killing the distance so that Mheshimiwa in Minnesota and also in Switzerland can as well vote closer to where they are. We are suggesting that we should introduce temporary voting registration. We are calling it mobile. And one of the Mheshimiwa actually said that you guys suggesting that we should have buses and or vans to go around the diaspora and register you guys or vote, because that one will not allow you guys at we don't have control of the vote control of the vote. But if these centers have been gazetted, and this is a good example in Atlanta, where actually many Kenyans voted here in the last US elections, some of these churches that we own or that we have in the diaspora can act as facilities for us to go there and register. The Kenyans who are here in Dallas, we can identify one of the churches here and say, okay, that is where we're going to register or vote. Minnesota, the same. The ones in Europe, the ones in Uganda, the ones in the Middle East, we can identify those areas so that we can kill the distance and have as many people to register as much as possible. So this is an area, we got some feedback from especially from LSK. They say wording is key in Kenya, especially our vote directly dissects the presidency, which is highly contested. So our wording has to be very critical, and you said you're going to reward and find out the best term we can use so that it doesn't look like it is mobile. And someone says, okay, there's a bus here in Dallas collecting votes that will be sent to Kenya, and it becomes a whole problem. So that's an area we were suggesting in our amendment, and also the documents. These are the High Court actually gave a direction on this as well, that we shall be using both either the passport or the passport or the ID, but the regulations have not been amended. So that's an area we also need to be amended and be right with the law. We are suggesting to have a unique identifier, and I think Dr. Martin will have a deeper explanation about this, of how you're going to have a unique identifier, because Kenyans in the diaspora don't want to give the information to a government or whoever. We understand the reasons why. And we're able to meet the government officials and you tell them, these are the reasons why people don't want to give you their information. They don't trust you. And you haven't given them a lot of reasons to start trusting you. So if you are able to use a unique identifier, it may bring trust, so that the way we have in the US and even the Europe or other places, you only have one unique identifier that actually can link, so that it can help you. So I think Dr. Matt will expand on that a little bit. The next part is about time zone. I think this one I've already touched, and the representatives. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you are able to amend some of these things that we have in the existing law and push the numbers in the diaspora and have as many Kenyans registered as voters, it becomes easier for us even to ask some incentives from them, including representation. It is easier. So the numbers count. The politicians understand the language of numbers. I'm not, but I'll tell you, they'll give you direct answer. How many guys are you? As Wiper Party, how many Kenyans can I get from the diaspora to vote for my president or for my that category? As ODM, as this. So the numbers matter. We are not pushing for any political party at the moment. We're just pushing for people to register. It is your own decision. As Article 838 says, it is your own sole decision to be affiliated with any political party you want. And it's only your own decision to choose your representative. Whoever you want to vote for, it is your choice. But as registering in thousands and thousands, then it pushes a lot of things from the diaspora. Even Weshimiwa here, it will be easy for them if they go to some of these entities and say, we have so many Kenyans as well in the US or whichever we are, and they're pushing, it becomes easy if they have that data. We can't just be continuing having an estimate, 3 million, estimate, 4 million, estimate this. Even in the US, we don't know how many we are in the US. If you go online, they'll tell you 100 and something thousand, but we are more than that. So we need the numbers, and this will help us to plan